The storm on Mars had raged for 6 straight days. Winds screamed across the red desert, carrying dust sharp enough to strip paint from metal. The research outpost Ares 9 stood alone in that chaos, half buried under dunes, its lights flickering like the heartbeat of a dying beast. Inside, a dozen scientists waited, huddled in the dim glow of emergency lamps, listening to the storm tear at the world outside. Dr. Evelyn Hart stared at the cracked holographic display. The seismic readings pulsed again, bright and erratic. Something beneath the surface, something massive, was moving. "Another false reading?" one of the engineers asked, voice shaking. Evelyn didn't answer. She just stared at the monitor. The energy signature was too structured, too deliberate. It wasn't random geology. It was a pattern. Her heart pounded. For weeks, they had been mapping the Martian subsurface, following whispers of strange readings buried deep in the crust. Most thought it was ancient lava flows or frozen water deposits. But Evelyn had seen the pattern from orbit before, the same spiral design, the same rhythmic pulse, as if the planet itself were breathing. Now it was awake. She rose, the light from the console painting her face red. "Get the diggers online," she said. "We're going down." The storm broke the next morning. A pale sunrise crept over the horizon, bleeding through the dust-choked sky. Outside the dome, the excavation pit yawned like a wound. Heavy drills hummed, their mechanical arms clawing through rock that hadn't seen daylight in millions of years. After 12 hours, the drills hit something solid. The sound it made wasn't stone. It was deeper, a metallic hum that vibrated through their suits, through the ground, through the bones in their bodies. The machines froze, sensors shorting out one by one. "What the hell is that?" the foreman muttered, tapping his console. Evelyn didn't wait. She descended into the pit herself, her boots sinking into the red dust, visor fogging with her breath. The air down there was still, heavy, silent. And then she saw it. A shape emerged from the rock, a smooth, black surface curving upward like the edge of a buried moon. No seams, no cracks, just a perfect obsidian wall, cold and lifeless, yet humming with something ancient and powerful beneath. Her breath caught in her throat. "We found it," she whispered. "God help us, we actually found it." 3 days later, they had uncovered the full structure. It stood 20 meters tall, perfectly smooth, a massive rectangular slab of black metal that drank in light instead of reflecting it. The scientists had tried everything, scans, lasers, even plasma cutters. Nothing worked. The material couldn't be scratched, couldn't be measured, couldn't even be named. It pulsed faintly now, every few minutes as if it had a heartbeat. They called it the Watcher. The world above responded in chaos. The discovery reached Earth in less than a day. Every government, every corporation, every believer and skeptic wanted a piece of it. Some said it was a weapon. Others said it was a tomb. But Evelyn knew better. It was waiting. The first time it spoke, every instrument in Ares 9 died. Lights flickered, comms went silent, gravity fluctuated. The power grid screamed and went dark. Then came the voice. Soft at first, a whisper that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. It wasn't human, but it wasn't alien either. It was familiar, like hearing the echo of your own thoughts spoken back to you. "You are ready." Every human on Mars heard it, whether they were in the lab, the bunks, or the mess hall. The words burrowed into their minds like warmth after a long winter. Evelyn fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face. "Who are you?" she whispered. The air shimmered, and symbols began to appear across the surface of the Watcher, lines of light like molten gold running through the black metal. The patterns shifted faster than any human could read, faster than any AI could decode. And then images. They flashed through her mind like lightning. Stars being born, empires rising and collapsing, battles fought in silence across burning skies. Creatures of light and metal standing before vast fleets of ships that blotted out suns. And among them, humans. Ships bearing Earth's flag, soldiers in armor forged from the same black metal. The Watcher was showing them the future. Evelyn didn't sleep for 3 days. She and her team recorded everything, though much of it was impossible to translate. The energy field around the Watcher distorted time itself. Clocks ran backward, voices echoed seconds before they were spoken. The next message came during one of those distortions. "We guided those before you. They failed. You endure. You will rise." The Watcher's surface rippled like water. A projection unfolded, a star map that spread across the entire chamber, showing constellations unfamiliar to any human chart. Some stars pulsed with red light, others were crossed out entirely. "They fell to fear," the Watcher said. "Do not." And then, in a burst of light, it transmitted something directly into their systems. An ocean of data, blueprints, algorithms, entire libraries of physics no human had ever seen. Humanity's path had just changed forever. The following months were chaos. Earth's governments argued, corporations fought for control, and religions splintered overnight. But amid the confusion, the Watcher remained silent, its light dimmed, its presence patient, almost watchful. Evelyn became its voice. She was summoned before the Terran Council, her words broadcast to every colony across the solar system. She spoke simply, quietly. "It's not a threat, it's a guide. The Watchers are ancient. They've been waiting for us, for humanity to reach them. They saw something in us that others lacked. Maybe it's defiance. Maybe it's our hunger to survive. Whatever it is, they believe we're ready to take our place among the stars." The world held its breath. No one knew if they should rejoice or fear. But deep down, every human, on Earth, on Mars, on the frozen moons of Jupiter, felt something stir in their hearts. A new destiny, a dangerous one. The last time Evelyn stood before the Watcher, she was alone. The excavation site had been abandoned after the transfer of the artifact to orbit. The chamber was cold, empty, and silent except for the faint hum of machines. She pressed her gloved hand to the surface. "Why us?" she whispered. "Why humanity?" The Watcher pulsed once, softly, like a heartbeat. "Because you are born from ruin," it said, "and only those who have seen their own extinction can understand power without mercy." Evelyn froze. The words sank into her like ice. Outside, the stars of Mars shimmered, and far beyond them, humanity's first warship, built from the blueprints the Watcher had given, rose into orbit, its engines burning brighter than dawn. The age of silence was over. The age of the Watchers had begun. 100 years after the Watcher spoke, humanity was no longer bound to Earth. They had crossed the threshold of the stars. The Terran Union armada drifted between systems like a living storm, warships the size of cities, forged from black alloy taken from the Watcher's designs. Planets that had once been lifeless now bloomed with light, oceans, and human laughter. Cities hung in orbit, spinning like lanterns across the void. Humanity had done what the ancient empires never could. They had endured. And because they endured, they learned. Every generation since Dr. Evelyn Hart's discovery had grown up under the shadow of the Watchers. Their presence had become more myth than science, their words carved into the foundation of the new civilization. "You will rise." Humanity did more than rise, they dominated. But the galaxy was not empty. The stars already belonged to others, ancient species who had ruled the void for thousands of years. They called themselves the Vreek Dominion, the Kellen Triarch, the Thalkar Assemblage, and the Solari Conquered. They had seen countless young races reach for the stars and burn out. To them, humanity was just another child, another noise in the endless dark. They did not welcome the newcomers. At first, they ignored humanity's expansion. But when human fleets began to colonize systems at the edge of their borders, when Terran traders began appearing in markets once closed to outsiders, the old powers grew uneasy. And when the Terran Union built its first citadel world, a planet completely encased in machinery, pulsing with Watcher-born energy, the unease turned to fear. The first encounter came at the edge of Solari space. A small human survey ship, TNS Horizon, was charting a nebula when 3 Solari cruisers appeared. The aliens demanded surrender, claiming the humans had trespassed into sacred territory. The Horizon refused. The Solari opened fire. What they didn't know was that every Terran ship, no matter how small, carried technology no other race had ever seen. Energy shields that bent time around impact. Weapons that used gravitational collapse to destroy targets at the molecular level. The Horizon's captain didn't even have time to issue a warning before the ship's automated defense grid activated. A single pulse, a single flash. 3 Solari cruisers vanished from existence. No debris, no signal, nothing but silence. The galaxy noticed. The Terran Union Council tried to calm the storm that followed. They sent envoys to the Solari, the Vreek, the Thalkar. They spoke of peace, of coexistence, of shared futures. But the other empires saw arrogance. They saw humans using weapons they did not understand, technology they could not have built on their own. The word spread. The humans have awoken the old machines. The Solari demanded the Watcher relics be surrendered. The Thalkir sent spies. The Vreek Dominion sent a fleet. It was the Dominion that made the fatal mistake. In the year 2248, 500 Vreek warships entered Sol system. They announced their intent to purge the parasites of the machine gods. They did not expect resistance. When they emerged from slipspace near Neptune, they found the Terran Second Fleet waiting. 100 human ships, motionless, silent, their black hulls glinting like obsidian blades against the cold stars. The Dominion Admiral broadcast his message across all channels. This system is claimed by the Vreek Dominion. Surrender your vessels and dismantle your relics. You are not welcome among the stars. For a long time there was only static, then a single voice responded, calm, human. You are trespassing in Terran space. Leave now. The alien laughed. You think your machines make you gods. The human commander didn't answer. She didn't need to. When the battle began, the void itself seemed to bend. Human dreadnoughts fired graviton lances, beams that tore through the Dominion's shields like sunlight through fog. Torpedoes streaked through the dark, detonating with white fire that left nothing behind but vapor and ash. The Dominion fought back. They were ancient and proud. Their plasma cannons could melt mountains, their warships had crushed dozens of species before, but it made no difference. The human ships moved like predators, silent, efficient, merciless. From the bridge of the TNS Resolute, Admiral Helena Corrin watched the enemy formation collapse. Target capital vessel, she ordered. Her voice was steady, her eyes cold. The Dominion flagship tried to flee. Its engines flared. The Resolute's main weapon fired once. A miniature sun bloomed in the void, then nothing. When the smoke cleared, 500 enemy ships were gone. Not disabled, not defeated, erased. The battle lasted 22 minutes. The Vreek Dominion's oldest fleet, undefeated for millennia, was gone, wiped from the stars by a species that, a century ago, hadn't even left its own planet. The galaxy trembled. The news spread faster than light. Every world, every government, every creature that could think whispered the same name, humanity. The Dominion sued for peace within a day. The Solari sent emissaries in silence. The Thalkir withdrew their spies and burned their research. But peace was not what the humans wanted, not yet. They sent a message across the galactic network, simple, clear, undeniable. We are the children of Earth. We do not bow, we do not yield. We are guided by the Watchers, and we are coming. The message spread like fire. Some called it arrogance, others called it prophecy. Every alien civilization watched and waited, torn between fear and curiosity. They wondered how the humans had done it, how a species born from a single fragile world could wield power that defied comprehension. None of them knew the truth. None of them had seen the Watchers awaken. In the shadow of Neptune, as the wreckage of the Dominion fleet drifted silently, Admiral Corrin stood alone in the observation deck of her ship. Outside, the Watcher satellite pulsed faintly, one of many now orbiting every Terran world. Was this what you wanted, she whispered, for us to become this? No voice answered, but deep in her mind she felt it, a faint echo, warm and ancient. You endure. She closed her eyes, the words filled her like fire. Humanity had crossed the line between survival and supremacy. There was no going back. In the centuries to come, the galaxy would remember this battle as the shattering at Neptune. It was the day the old order died and the new one began. It was the day every empire learned a single, terrible truth: that the humans were not the heirs of the Watchers. They were their vengeance. The space around Neptune was silent. Cold, empty, beautiful. A pale blue light shimmered across the planet's frozen clouds, and far above in that quiet dark the Terran Second Fleet waited. 100 warships hung in formation, black, angular, and still. Their engines were dead quiet, their hulls reflecting nothing. They looked less like ships and more like shadows given form. On the bridge of the TNS Resolute, Admiral Helena Corrin stood before the panoramic glass, her hands clasped behind her back. The stars glittered against her armor like distant candles. Her face was calm, but her eyes burned with a quiet fire. Behind her, the crew worked in silence. No one spoke louder than a whisper. Every officer knew what was coming. The Dominion fleet. 500 ships. Older, heavier, armed with weapons that had shattered civilizations before humanity even walked upright. And they were heading straight for Saul. Helena's second officer, Commander Ruiz, stepped forward. Admiral, enemy fleet emerging from slipspace. Vector confirmed, straight through the Neptune corridor. Helena didn't move. She just stared into the dark. How long? 2 minutes. She nodded slowly. Her voice, when it came, was soft but steady. Signal the fleet, code red, no transmissions, no mercy. Across 100 ships, the order echoed. The humans moved like one being. Guns armed, shields charged, missiles loaded. The fleet turned as one, their hulls flaring with blue light as reactors ignited. For a moment, it looked like Neptune itself had come alive. Then space tore open. 500 Vreek ships burst out of slipspace like a tidal wave. Their hulls were bone-white, jagged, scarred from 1,000 battles. The Dominion flagship, the Tyrant's Eye, loomed at the center, a behemoth nearly 10 kilometers long, its main cannon glowing with deadly energy. Alien signals flooded the comms, harsh voices, guttural and full of scorn. Terran fleet, you stand before the Dominion. Surrender your vessels and submit to cleansing. No reply. Helena watched as the enemy fleet spread out, their formation shifting into attack lines. They think we'll run, Ruiz muttered. Helena's lips curved into the faintest smile. Then let's disappoint them. Fire on my mark, she said, her hand hovering over the command display. The bridge lights dimmed. Outside, the stars vanished behind weapon glare. Mark. The Resolute fired first. A blinding lance of graviton energy ripped through the void, bending space itself around its path. The beam struck the lead Vreek cruiser head-on. For one heartbeat, the alien ship's shields flared like a dying sun, then it folded in half, crushed by its own gravity. The first kill came before the enemy realized they were under attack. Then the void lit up. The entire Terran fleet unleashed hell. Hundreds of graviton lances fired in unison, tearing glowing rifts through the dark. Missiles screamed across the void, detonating with such power that even Neptune's storms shimmered from the shockwaves. The Dominion returned fire. Plasma bolts the size of buildings slammed into Terran shields, carving bright scars through space. But the shields held, bending the energy aside like water around stone. The humans moved fast, too fast. Their ships turned with impossible precision, their weapons recharging before the Dominion could aim again. It was as if the Watchers themselves were fighting beside them. Helena stood unmoving, her eyes tracking every movement. Target the Tyrant's Eye, she ordered. The Resolute and 3 dreadnoughts adjusted course. Engines flared. The formation twisted, cutting through the center of the battle like a blade. Ruiz's voice was tight. Admiral will be surrounded. We already are, Helena said. Keep firing. The Dominion flagship turned its cannon toward them. A pulse of blue light gathered at its core, pure stellar plasma, compressed and weaponized. Helena stared into the glow, calm as death. Brace for impact. The enemy fired. The shot tore across 100 kilometers of space in a single instant. The Resolute shuddered as shields flared red, buckling under the force. Consoles exploded. The bridge filled with smoke and sparks. Shields down to 40%, Ruiz shouted. Helena didn't flinch. Return fire. The Resolute's main weapon charged, the hum deep and low. The entire ship trembled as energy built up along the spine. Then, with a single word, fire, the void turned white. The graviton lance hit the Tyrant's Eye dead center. For a second, nothing happened. Then the flagship imploded. Not an explosion, an implosion. The entire ship crushed inward, collapsing under the pull of its own artificial gravity. The Dominion Admiral's final transmission was cut short by silence. A god had fallen. But the battle wasn't over. More enemy ships closed in, firing wildly in rage. Human ships burned. 2 destroyers vanished in fire, their crews dying without a sound. The fleet was bleeding. Helena's hands tightened around the console. Her throat ached, but her voice was steady. Hold the line. Outside, the Resolute weaved through wreckage, its hull scarred but unbroken. Human ships regrouped, their weapons glowing hotter, brighter. Admiral Ruiz gasped, "The Watcher satellites, they're activating." Above Neptune, 3 black spheres began to pulse. The same relic design found on Mars, now orbiting the planet like silent gods. Lines of gold light ran across their surfaces. Then, as if answering a call only they could hear, they fired. Massive beams of pure energy sliced through the void, cutting through Dominion ships like paper. No heat, no explosion, just silence. In seconds, half the enemy fleet was gone. The rest tried to flee. The survivors jumped to slipspace, their drives glowing as they tore holes in reality. But even there, the Watcher's reach followed. The rifts closed before the Dominion could escape. Ships were ripped apart mid-jump, erased from the fabric of space-time. Within 22 minutes, the war was over. Helena stood on the ruined bridge, smoke curling around her. Her crew was exhausted, bloodied, silent. She looked out at the debris field, what was left of the greatest fleet the Dominion had ever built. "Neptune secured," Ruiz whispered. Helena closed her eyes. "Send word to Earth. Tell them," she hesitated, the words heavy in her chest. "Tell them the stars are ours." Days later, the survivors of the Dominion fleet limped home, carrying stories that spread across the galaxy like wildfire. They spoke of human ships that fought like demons, of weapons that could bend light, of relics that seemed alive. And they spoke of an admiral who stood against impossible odds and never blinked. To the Vreek Dominion, it was a nightmare. To humanity, it was legend. They called it Neptune's Inferno. Far away in orbit above Mars, the first Watcher stirred. Its surface glowed faintly, as if waking from a long dream. "They endure," it whispered into the void. And across the stars, the echoes of that battle began to reshape history. The old empires trembled, the weak hid behind treaties, the bold prepared for war. But every one of them now understood what the Watchers had already known. Humanity was no longer a species of survivors. They were conquerors, and they were just getting started. The battle at Neptune did more than crush a fleet. It shattered a belief. For 10,000 years, the galaxy had been ruled by the same ancient powers. The Vreek Dominion, the Solari conquered, the Thalkar assemblage, the Kellan triarch. Together, they had built their empires on the certainty that no young race could rise high enough to challenge them. They had seen hundreds try, hundreds fail, but humanity was different. The day the Dominion's Grand Armada was erased, something in the balance of the stars changed. A new name began to spread through every trading post, every council chamber, every backroom and shadowed hall. Terrans. The word carried weight, fear, and something worse, respect. In the smoky chambers of the Solari High Council, whispers turned to panic. Holograms flickered as counselors argued, their voices hissing like snakes. "They are primitives," one spat. "Their world was still covered in oil smoke a century ago." "Primitives do not destroy fleets," another answered coldly. "The Watchers fight for them." Silence followed. Everyone knew of the Watchers, ancient relics scattered across the galaxy, silent and dead. Every race had found them once. Every race had tried to awaken them. None had succeeded. Until now. "If they truly command the Watchers," a voice whispered, "then none of us are safe." And for the first time in 1,000 years, the Solari bowed their heads in fear. The Thalkar assemblage reacted differently. They were warriors, proud and brutal. They believed in strength above all else. When news of Neptune reached them, their leader, Overlord Drath, laughed. "Let them come," he growled. "Let us see if their machines bleed." His fleets gathered, building fortresses along the border worlds. But even he could not silence the unease among his generals. Reports had come in, half-truths, rumors, wild claims, entire planets vanishing. Watcher relics seen orbiting human colonies, their black surfaces glowing faintly. A Terran fleet appearing without warning in systems across the rim, then vanishing again. "Ghost ships," the soldiers whispered, "shadows that kill." Even Drath began to wonder. But fear did not stay quiet for long. It grew, it spread. Within months, the Galactic network was alive with stories. They said the Terrans had tamed the Watchers. They said their ships could fold space and move faster than light itself. They said they were building a weapon large enough to destroy a star. And the strangest rumor of all, that the Watchers had chosen them. Meanwhile, in the shining heart of human space, the Terran Union celebrated. The victory at Neptune became legend overnight. Children learned about Admiral Helena Corrin before they learned to read. Songs were written, statues built, every colony world glowed with pride and fire. But even in triumph, some were uneasy. In the vast halls of the Terran Council, where marble floors reflected the light of alien suns, the debate raged. "We have proven our strength," said Councillor Mendez, his voice booming. "Let the galaxy know who we are, let them remember Neptune." "And if they unite against us?" another asked softly. "If the old empires join hands to end us?" The chamber fell quiet. No one wanted to admit the truth. Humanity had climbed too fast, too far. The stars were watching. And some eyes were ancient. On Mars, deep beneath the red surface, Dr. Evelyn Hart's granddaughter, Lyra Hart, stood before the same watcher her ancestor had uncovered a century earlier. It pulsed faintly, just as it had the first day. She had spent her life studying it, trying to understand its purpose. But even now, she felt like a child standing before a god. "We did what you said," she whispered. "We rose, we conquered, but what now?" For a moment, nothing happened. The chamber was silent except for the soft hum of machines. Then the surface of the watcher rippled. "You have been seen," it said. Lyra froze. "By who?" "Vol." A chill ran through her. The watcher's light dimmed, then flared brighter than ever before. "They will come." And they did. Within weeks, alien fleets began to move. Scouts appeared near human borders. Old enemies began whispering to one another. The galaxy that had once mocked humanity now turned its full attention toward them. The Vreek, desperate for revenge, rebuilt their fleets. The Thalkir gathered in silence, sharpening their claws. Even the Solari, who had not fought a war in 2,000 years, began to arm their worlds. Humanity watched it all unfold. Admiral Corrin, now a hero of legend, stood once again on the bridge of her ship. The Resolute had been rebuilt, stronger than ever. Around her, the fleet stretched for light years, thousands of ships, each one humming with power. She looked out at the stars and whispered, "They still don't understand." They didn't. Because humanity's greatest weapon wasn't the Watchers. It was themselves. Every Terran soldier, every colonist, every child carried a fire no ancient race could extinguish. The Watchers had given them tools, but humanity had forged destiny with their own hands. The old empires could not comprehend that kind of will. They had grown soft in peace. Humanity had been born in struggle. The difference would soon burn across the galaxy. In a dark corner of space, far beyond known charts, the Watchers stirred. Their silent forms floated in blackness, each one the size of a mountain. They had been waiting for this moment, waiting for the next phase. Their voices whispered through the void, not in words but in thoughts. They endure. They fight. They are ready. For the first time in ages, the stars themselves seemed to shiver. Back on Earth, under the blue sky of the old world, the people looked up and saw 1,000 points of light moving across the heavens, Terran ships departing for the frontiers. Families wept. Soldiers saluted. Children waved as the sky filled with the thunder of engines. The war drums of the future had begun to beat. But this time, it would not be humanity fighting for survival. It would be the galaxy fighting for its place against them. In a distant council hall on Vreekthal, an elder of the Dominion stood before a crowd of terrified generals. He raised his trembling claws and hissed, "You do not understand what they are. They are not conquerors. They are a storm, and storms do not negotiate." The words spread across the stars. Every empire listened. Every empire prepared. And somewhere, deep beneath the surface of Mars, the first watcher whispered once more. "The test begins." For the galaxy, it was the sound of prophecy. For humanity, it was the promise of destiny. And in that moment, as fleets prepared and stars trembled, the universe remembered the truth it had tried to forget. The Watchers had not created gods. They had only revealed them. And the gods were human. The stars above the Vreek homeworld burned red that night. From the surface, they looked like wounds, open and raw, bleeding light into the void. The Vreek people had once looked up at those stars with pride. They had ruled this sky for thousands of years. Their fleets had conquered worlds. Their armies had enslaved nations. Their name had meant power. Now those same stars whispered of death. Because humanity was coming. In the orbit of Mars, the Terran Armada assembled. 1,000 ships, dreadnoughts, carriers, destroyers, stood ready, their black hulls glowing faintly with the pulse of Watcher energy. Each ship carried enough firepower to destroy a moon. Together, they formed a wall of power unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Admiral Helena Corrin watched them from the bridge of her flagship, the TNS Ascendant. She had grown older since Neptune. Her hair was silver now, her voice rough from years of command, but her eyes, they burned brighter than ever. In front of her floated the image of Vreekthal, the Dominion's capital world. Its cities glowed like embers across the surface. Its fleet, nearly 2,000 strong, circled it in tight formation. 2,000 ships, her second officer whispered. They outnumber us 2 to 1. Helena didn't flinch. Numbers don't matter, she said quietly, only will. The Watcher satellites that followed the fleet began to glow, black metal turning gold as their systems awakened. The deep hum of power rolled through every ship. It felt like the heartbeat of a god. Order the fleet to advance. And with that, humanity went to war. The invasion began at dawn, or what passed for dawn on Vreekthal. The Dominion's defenses opened fire first. Thousands of plasma cannons ignited the void, their light turning the sky white. Human shields flared, bending and shimmering, absorbing the energy like waves against steel. Then came the reply. Human dreadnoughts unleashed graviton beams that carved through the enemy lines. Cruisers fired barrages of guided warheads that spiraled like comets, slamming into Vreek vessels and tearing them apart. The void filled with wreckage and fire. But the Dominion did not run. They were proud, they were ancient, and they would die before bowing to the upstarts from Earth. Their flagship, the Scion of Vreek, led the counterattack. It was a monster of a ship, kilometers long, its hull carved with the bones of conquered species. Its weapons burned through 2 Terran destroyers in seconds. Admiral Corrin stood unmoved. Bring the Ascendant to full power, she said. Target the Scion. Her voice was soft, but the bridge trembled with the weight of it. The Ascendant surged forward, engines roaring with Watcher fire. The Dominion flagship turned to meet it. 2 Titans clashed above the burning world. Each strike shattered the darkness. Beams of light crossed like blades, explosions blooming like dying suns. The Scion's cannons roared, ripping through the void. The Ascendant's shields held for only moments before the force shook the ship to its core. Shields at 50%, Ruiz shouted. Maintain course. A plasma bolt struck the port wing. The deck lurched, crew members fell, sparks rained down like fire. But Helena never moved. Her eyes stayed locked on the enemy flagship. Target locked, Ruiz said. Fire. The Ascendant's main cannon roared. A beam of blue-white light split the void. It hit the Scion midsection, tearing through armor, decks, and life. The explosion lit up the entire system. When the light faded, the Dominion's proud flagship was gone. Helena exhaled softly. Forward, she said. And the Terran fleet pressed deeper. Below, on the surface of Vreekthal, the war had already begun. Terran drop pods screamed through the atmosphere like falling stars. They slammed into the ground with thunder, splitting open to reveal soldiers in black armor, their visors glowing blue. The Vreek met them with claws and plasma rifles, roaring in rage and desperation. The humans didn't roar back. They moved in silence, calm, cold, relentless. They fought through the streets of obsidian cities under the shattered domes of temples older than Earth itself. Human mechs stomped through fire and ash, their cannons shredding enemy lines. The Vreek fell in waves. One soldier, Captain Ilya Crane, stood atop the ruins of a fortress, blood splattered across her armor. For Earth, she shouted. Her voice was swallowed by the sound of 1,000 guns. The humans kept advancing. Hours passed, the sky turned black, Vreekthal burned. From orbit, it looked like a dying sun, fires spreading across continents, cities falling one by one. On the Ascendant, Helena watched the planet's defense grid flicker out. Ruiz spoke softly. The Dominion is requesting a ceasefire. Helena didn't answer right away. She looked out at the burning world, her face unreadable. How many of our ships lost? 73. She closed her eyes. For a long moment she said nothing. Then, transmit our answer. Ruiz hesitated. What should I tell them? Helena opened her eyes. Tell them humanity doesn't ask for peace, it creates it. The final strike came from orbit. Watcher satellites aligned above the planet. Their cores glowed brighter than any sun. A single command pulsed through the fleet. Execute judgment. The sky broke open. Beams of golden light poured down, vaporizing the Dominion's military bases in seconds. There was no explosion, no shockwave, just silence, as matter itself turned to dust. When it ended, the once mighty homeworld of the Vreek Dominion lay quiet. And for the first time in 10,000 years, the galaxy's oldest empire fell. Across the stars, no one cheered. No one spoke. Every government, every world, every living thing that could see the transmission from Vreekthal watched in silence as the Terran flag rose above the ruins. Human soldiers stood among the wreckage, their armor reflecting firelight. Behind them, the Watchers hovered like gods, silent, eternal, watching their chosen children claim the stars. Admiral Helena Corrin stood on the bridge, looking down at the dead world. Transmit to all channels, she said. The galaxy listened. We did not come to destroy, we came to end the age of tyrants. The Watchers showed us the truth, that the strong protect the weak or they do not deserve their strength. The Dominion ruled through fear. Humanity will rule through power, a different kind of fear. Her voice softened. We are the future, and the future does not ask permission. The signal spread across the galaxy. It could not be blocked, it could not be ignored. In the days that followed, entire empires bent the knee. Others hid, trembling in the dark. And yet among the ashes of Vreekthal, something else stirred, hope. Not for peace, but for destiny fulfilled. The Watchers had been silent during the battle. Now, their voices echoed faintly through the comms, heard by every human everywhere. They endure. They learned. They ascend. The war was over. The age of humanity had begun. The galaxy was quiet. Too quiet. Months had passed since the fall of the Vreek Dominion. The fires on their world still burned, casting a faint glow across space like the dying embers of a forgotten god. Humanity stood triumphant, unchallenged, unmatched, unstoppable. But in victory, something began to stir. The Watchers, silent since the last battle, started to awaken. Across the colonies, their relics pulsed with light, humming in the same rhythm as human hearts. On every Terran world, Mars, Europa, Titan, New Sol, people looked up and saw the sky flicker gold. And deep within those lights, voices whispered again. The cycle nears its end. The test is almost complete. In the great halls of the Terran Council, fear replaced triumph. Holograms of Watchers hovered above the chamber table, each one shimmering with golden patterns. Leaders from every colony had gathered, their faces lit by the soft glow. Admiral Helena Corrin stood among them, still in her dark uniform. She had not slept in days. The Watchers' awakening had left her uneasy. They've started broadcasting again, said Lyra Hart, granddaughter of the first Watchers' discoverer. Her voice trembled as she replayed the signal. It was a wave of sound, low, haunting, almost human. Every Watcher in known space is transmitting the same thing. It's like a countdown. Countdown to what? Someone demanded. Lyra hesitated. I don't know, but whatever it is, it's massive. Helena's eyes narrowed. Find out fast. Hours later, Lyra stood alone in her Mars laboratory. The same Watcher that her grandmother had discovered loomed before her, tall, silent, perfect. Its surface rippled faintly as if alive. You've been quiet for a long time, she said softly. Why now? For a moment, nothing happened. Then the chamber lights dimmed, the temperature dropped, her breath misted in the air. The Watcher spoke. Because you are ready. Lyra froze, ready for what? For truth. A blinding flash filled the room. The Watcher projected an image, a vast star map stretching across galaxies, too many to count. But one cluster burned brighter than all the rest, like a heartbeat at the center of the universe. This is where it began, the Watcher said. Lyra's eyes widened. The origin world. The first civilization, the voice answered. Our creators. The image changed. A vision of beings made of light and energy appeared, tall, radiant, and serene. They moved among stars, building wonders beyond comprehension. They were the architects. They built us, the watchers, to find their successors. Lyra felt her knees weaken. Successors. Each cycle a race is chosen, tested, judged. Those who endure inherit what came before. Those who fail are forgotten. Her voice cracked. You mean there were others? Many, all failed. The Watcher's voice deepened. But you, children of Earth, you endured ruin. You rose from ashes and reached for the stars. You are the final test. Across the galaxy, Watchers began transmitting the same message. Every human ship, every colony, every soldier heard it echo through their systems. You are the last, you are the inheritors. The words spread like fire. People cheered, religions were born overnight. The idea of divine purpose filled the hearts of billions. But Helena Corrin did not cheer. She sat alone in her quarters aboard the Ascendant, listening to the recording again and again. Something about it felt wrong, too clean, too rehearsed. She stood, walking to the window. Beyond the glass, space shimmered faintly, small ripples, invisible to the naked eye but visible to her sensors. The Watchers were moving. Lyra contacted her that night. They're gathering, Lyra said through the comms. Every Watcher across the galaxy is converging on one point, an empty system near the galactic core. Why there? Helena asked. I think they're calling us. Helena's chest tightened. And if we don't answer? Lyra hesitated. They might come for us instead. Helena closed her eyes. Then we'll go. Within a week, the Ascendant and the Terran Vanguard fleet entered slipspace. 10,000 ships followed. The journey took 3 days. When they emerged, the crew fell silent. Before them hung a sight no human mind was ready to see. A star, ancient and dying, surrounded by thousands of Watchers, massive black monoliths glowing faintly gold. They formed a ring around the star, each one connected by webs of light. Helena stepped forward. What is this? She whispered. Lyra's voice came over the comms. It's a gateway. They built it for us. Suddenly, the Watchers turned. Every single one rotated in perfect unison, facing the Terran fleet. The hum grew louder, vibrating through every ship, through every bone. Then the voice came again, louder than before, resonating across light years. Humanity has proven strength. Humanity has proven endurance. Now humanity must prove wisdom. A beam of light shot out from the central star, hitting the Ascendant squarely. Helena's vision blurred. She saw flashes, wars, victories, deaths. She saw humanity's history unfold in seconds. Then she saw what came next. A future where humans ruled every world. A future where every alien bowed before them. A future where the galaxy burned. The Watcher's voice grew colder. We do not choose gods, we build them. Helena gasped, falling to her knees. You used us. You used yourselves, we only guided the path. Lyra's voice crackled through the comms. Admiral, they're charging their cores, power levels rising across the fleet. Helena stood, trembling. They're going to activate something. The Ascension Protocol, the Watcher said. It will complete the transformation. What transformation? You will become what we once were. Helena stared out at the star, at the countless Watchers circling it like sentinels. And if we refuse? Then you remain what you are, temporary. The light intensified. Energy surged across the fleet. Systems went haywire. Engines roared. Helena gritted her teeth. All ships power down weapons, shut everything off now. The order spread instantly. The human fleet went dark. In the silence that followed, only the heartbeat of the Watchers remained. Helena took a deep breath and stepped forward, her voice steady. We won't become you. We're not your creations. We are ourselves. The Watcher's glow faltered. Defiance again, it said softly, just like before. Then you already know how this ends, she said. The Ascendant fired. A single graviton lance struck the nearest Watcher, cracking its perfect surface. The void exploded with light. The Watchers responded instantly, energy bursting from their cores. Beams tore through space, slamming into the human fleet. ships disintegrated by the hundreds. But humanity fought back. Every cannon fired, every engine burned. The void became a storm of fire and light. Watchers shattered, their fragments drifting like dying stars. The star at the center flared brighter, unstable. The entire system began to collapse. Helena's voice echoed through the comms. "We make our own destiny, no one writes it for us." The Watcher's voice faded. "You endure." Then silence. When it was over, the gateway was gone. The star imploded, taking the surviving Watchers with it. Only a handful of Terran ships escaped. Helena stood on the bridge of the broken Ascendant, her uniform torn, her voice hoarse. Lyra's signal was gone, half the fleet had vanished. But she smiled. They had refused to be gods. They had chosen to stay human. Across the galaxy, the remaining Watchers dimmed, their lights fading to black. But somewhere in the darkness, one whispered faintly, "They endure. They refuse the throne. Perhaps they deserve it most." And in the quiet after the storm, as the survivors drifted through the stars, Admiral Helena Corrin whispered to herself, "We don't need gods, we are the fire that burns them." The war in the stars had ended, but peace did not come. In the silence that followed the Watcher's fall, the galaxy held its breath. Entire sectors were gone, systems erased by collapsing stars, fleets turned to ash. The great powers of old were ghosts now, their empires shattered and scattered. And in the center of it all, surrounded by ruins and whispers, humanity remained. Scarred, fewer in number, but undefeated. Years passed. The survivors of the Terran vanguard drifted back toward known space, their ships scarred black from battle. They were greeted not by celebration, but by awe. Every world, every outpost, every surviving race watched the human ships return from the abyss and knew they had faced the gods and lived. Admiral Helena Corrin became a legend long before her return. Her name was spoken in temples, carved on stone, and whispered by alien slaves who prayed she'd never come again. When she finally stepped onto the soil of Earth, the crowds fell silent. The planet she had left behind was no longer the blue cradle she remembered. Massive orbital cities ringed the atmosphere. Watcher fragments, harvested from the dead relics, hung in orbit, pulsing faintly with captured power. Humanity had changed. They had rebuilt not as conquerors or servants, but as something in between, keepers of balance and bringers of fear. The Terran Union became the dominion of man. Its rule stretched across 1,000 worlds. Alien species that had once mocked humanity now served beneath its banners. The Solari and the Thalkar sent tribute. The remnants of the Vreek worked the shipyards they had once ruled. The Watcher technology, what little survived, was studied, tamed, and bound into human control. No longer gods, no longer masters, tools of humanity's will. It was said that the engineers of Mars could rebuild a fleet in weeks, that Terran warships could jump between stars in a heartbeat, and that on every capital ship, a single Watcher corps slept in silence, waiting for command. The galaxy called them the Watcher children. And they feared them. But not all was pride and glory. Admiral Corrin lived long enough to see what they had become. She saw the parades, the monuments, the endless ranks of soldiers raised in her name. She saw colonies built not for freedom but for order, for control. Humanity had survived every test, but at a cost. They had become what the Watchers had warned against, gods wearing human faces. One night she stood on the observation deck of the Ascendant's successor, the TNS Imperium, and watched the stars glimmer through the glass. Her reflection stared back, older now, her medals dull and heavy on her chest. Commander Ruiz, now gray and worn, stepped beside her. "The galaxy is ours," he said quietly. "You should be proud." Helena shook her head. "No," she whispered, "it's afraid." He frowned. "They should be. We earned that fear." She looked out again. "Fear isn't peace, Ruiz. It's just a quieter kind of war." In the centuries that followed, humanity spread further still. The Watchers were gone, but their influence lived on. In the technology that powered human ships, in the architecture of their worlds, in the myths told to their children. Some said the Watchers had not died at all, that they still existed, hidden deep in the folds of space, watching the empire they had helped create. And perhaps waiting for its fall. 300 years after the Battle of the Core, A new voice rose among the stars. Her name was Captain Myra Corrin, a descendant of Helena. She commanded the fleet Eternal Dawn, a ship built from the same black alloy once used by the Watchers themselves. To the people, she was the symbol of strength. To her enemies, she was death. One night, as her fleet patrolled the border of human space, a signal reached them, an unknown beacon pulsing faintly from the void beyond charted territory. The crew scanned it for hours, decoding the message. It was not a distress call. It was a warning. "We are watching." Myra stared at the transmission in silence. The crew looked to her for orders. "Do we answer?" Ruiz's descendant, her first officer, asked. She thought of her ancestor, of the woman who had stood against gods and refused to kneel. Then she smiled. "No," Myra said, "we remind them who we are." She turned toward the stars. "Broadcast to all sectors," she ordered. "Let every world hear it." Across the void, the message spread like thunder. "We are humanity. We were guided once, but we bow to none. We conquered our makers. We survived the fires of the stars. We do not worship gods. We become them." The signal reached every empire, every world. And the galaxy trembled. On a distant planet at the edge of known space, an old alien priest looked up at the night sky and fell to his knees. He had lived long enough to see his species, temples turned into Terran outposts. He had heard the stories, the Watchers chosen, the destroyers of worlds, the fire that never dies. Now he heard their voice again. His people whispered a single phrase in terror: "The humans have spoken." Because when humanity spoke, the stars listened. Back on Earth, the cities gleamed with white towers and silver skis. Children grew up under the shadow of Watcher relics, monuments now, reminders of the power that once tried to shape them. In the Hall of Ascension, the last statue of Admiral Helena Corrin stood, a figure of steel and light, her eyes turned toward the heavens. At her feet, engraved in simple letters, were her final words before she died. "We were guided by them, now we guide ourselves. Let the stars remember. Humanity endures." 1,000 years later, the galaxy was united under the dominion of man. The Terran fleets patrolled every border. No rebellion lasted longer than a day. No enemy survived more than an hour. Whole species had forgotten they were ever free. Yet among the stars, stories still spread, of a time when humanity had stood against gods, and of a whisper that said the Watchers were returning. But no one feared them anymore. Because now, when people saw the golden lights of the old relics awakening again, they didn't pray for mercy. They prayed for humanity's arrival. On the bridge of the Eternal Dawn, Captain Myra Corrin watched as another Watcher signal flickered to life in the distance. She smiled faintly, her eyes hard and steady. "They think they can judge us again," she said quietly. Ruiz's descendant turned to her. "What will you do?" She looked out into the endless dark and answered, "We'll remind them who the true Watchers are." The ship's engines ignited, brighter than any sun, as the fleet turned toward the signal. And across the galaxy, every empire held its breath. Because once again, the stars were about to learn the oldest and most terrible truth of all. Humanity was not chosen by the gods. Humanity became them.